You're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, 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 other than day one.
Donald Trump has successfully moved the Overton window in a way that is as dangerous for the future of democracy in this country as anything else.
This is what Vout and Project 2025 wanted.
Newsom is he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
They control the Congress, they control the White House, and they control the courts. And so, of course, they're massively overreaching. And yes, they are getting away with it right now.
This is clearly a man who cannot tolerate criticism of him or what he does, which is exactly what authoritarianism is all about.
The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. They really are the enemy of the people.
What he is saying, rather bluntly, if you stand up to Donald Trump, he will punish you.
Protesters in Philadelphia, state capitals in California, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, and others showed up to oppose Trump, Musk, and Project 2025.
The US and President Trump has overseen America's largest military parade in decades as nationwide protests take place against his leadership.
Demonstrations are happening right across the United States today to oppose the Trump administration.
Two visions of America. On a day the country's deepening divide was there for all the world to see.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, and you are watching Logically Left right here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all the usual suspects. Big tech, unfortunately. But hey, we've got a great show here on this Friday afternoon. You're going to love the polling here that we have on the economy, but Trump won't. Okay, so that's there's going to be some ketchup on the walls. Fun times. Then we also have the farmers that are not happy, soybean farmers. I know. Yeah, they're going all soy. Okay, not good, not good. And we're talking about giving them a bailout. That is, of course, the Trump administration is talking about giving them a bailout, which they're saying ain't going to be enough. Band-Aid on a gushing wound. So I've got some video on that. We've got a Republican admitting that Trump's revenge on the Democratic Party, on Democratic states, is actually going to hurt Trump voters as well. So, not that they care. We've got a Virginia Republican caught up in a Nazi porn scandal. Again, we got another one. We got another one. But it's a little bit different this time. So, I might be a little bit more, I don't know, understanding of this. I'm a very understanding person, believe it or not. And then we're also going to talk about how MAGA chuds online, these influencers, are trying to push a photoshopped image of the Michigan church shooter. What are they doing and why? Well, I got the answer on that one. So if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. With that said, why don't we go into the first segment here and talk about the soybean farmers. Funny enough, I actually don't mean soy boy as an insult. That's usually what the right wing says, which is kind of funny because a lot of soybean farmers are Republicans. Yeah, I never quite understood that, like, you and your liberals love your soy lattes. That means we're helping soybean farmers. Wouldn't that be a good thing? No, apparently not. Okay, well, anyway, let's get into it. Our dumb president has completely wrecked the very farmers that propelled him into a second presidential term. And look, if they had it their way, it would have been 3 terms, okay? Because they did vote for him in the last 3 elections. Now, the FO to their FA, okay, is going to have extremely bad consequences, not just for the farmers themselves, obviously, but for people all over the country, as farms are going to go out of business and prices will rise thanks to Donald Trump's wildly dumb and destructive, indiscriminate tariffs, okay? Look, these farmers are hurting badly, which is why on Wednesday, President said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the money, from the tariffs, from China, even though it's actually American businesses and Americans that pay those tariffs. China does not pay it. Other foreign governments do not pay the tariffs. We pay the tariffs. Anyway, says he's going to use some of that money to subsidize the soybean farmers, to give them a nice little bailout. Okay. And he had even suggested the same idea the prior week. Okay. Even though he did mix up the billions and millions of dollars. I mean, who can really tell? Billions, millions, trillions, bajillions that he's been making off the tariffs that supposedly come from China, but don't really. But yeah, he's mixing that up and recounting how much money would turn into actual aid for the farmers that he has screwed over. Okay. Now, one of the problems here, or I should say the main problem here, is that bailouts aren't going to be effective. Okay. I'm sorry, but you can't just sit there and keep giving money to the soybean farmers when they don't have a market. And that's the entire problem, okay? Trump's tariffs have destroyed the soybean market for U.S. farmers. So Trump, look, the guy is dumb, okay? He is so stupid that he does not realize that throwing a wad of cash at the farmers is not going to save them. I mean, he's acting like if it's one of his hotels, okay? Again, you need to have, for any businesses, customers. You have to have customers. And right now, nobody's buying. Soybeans were a huge, huge export. And now those markets no longer exist, okay? American Soybean Association President Caleb Ragland recently went on CNN and said this.
Our largest export market in China is a zero buyer. They buy as many soybeans as all of our other export markets combined. And right now, with them having not entered in to purchase U.S. soybeans, it is hurting prices and it is causing lots of uncertainty for our industry as a whole. Soybeans are the largest ag product that is exported from the United States. So this is a big deal. Biggest customer of our biggest ag product.
You know where China is getting their soybeans now? From Brazil and Argentina. Okay, the same Argentina that Trump is actually planning to give a bailout to, about $20 billion in a line of credit, okay, to that country. It's a credit swap line. All right, no, it's a bailout. It's a bailout. Okay, that country immediately went to China and said, hey, you need soybeans? Well, we got soybeans. I mean, don't buy it from them American jerk-offs, okay? No, buy it from us. We got soybeans, man. We're gonna sell them to you duty-free, unlike those American jerk-offs, okay? There was a message that was forwarded to Scott Bessent from Brooke Rollins, and it said, just a heads up, I'm getting more intel, but this is highly unfortunate. We bailed out Argentina yesterday, and in return, Argentina removed their export tariffs on grains, reducing their price to China at a time when we would normally be selling to China. Soy prices are dropping further because of it. This gives China more leverage on us.
Whoopsie. Whoopsie.
Oh, did you just mess up the soybean market for all the U.S. farmers and give Argentina an opening? Oops. Oh no, how's that America First turning out, guys? Not very well, apparently. Furthermore, Raglan then went on to pan these potential bailouts.
Government payments and programs never make farmers' bottom line whole. It will oftentimes serve as a Band-Aid on a wound, so to speak. What we need is markets and opportunities so we can actually make a profit and recoup the large investment that farmers have made. We have generations of equity invested in our operations, and we need the opportunity to get that back.
Well, that's not going to happen, unfortunately. You guys are well and truly screwed, as we all are, thanks to Donald Trump. I mean, you'd think that the farmers would have learned their lesson the first time when he did the exact same freaking thing the first 4 years, okay? He put in the tariffs, and guess what? He had to bail out the farmers. Only this time it's worse, okay? He made it worse. Those markets are gone. They're not coming back. Okay, that means the farmers, well, that means the farmers, you know, even if they do make a deal with China, they're not going to be able to see those markets come back, okay? And new markets are going to take years before they open, if they open at all. And so you're going to have a bunch of farmers that are going to go bankrupt as a result of this. But don't worry. Don't worry. J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, they've got a plan. They've got a plan to buy up all those bankrupted farms and consolidate our food supply. It kind of seems like a bad idea, in my view. You know, having a man that doesn't believe that democracy is compatible with capitalism owning all of our food, feels a bit dystopian to me. But, yeah, after all, at the end of the day, you did vote for it. I mean, we told you about the leopards, okay? Don't vote for the leopards, we said. Don't do it again. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for all of us. But they did it anyway, and shouldn't be surprised that they're coming for your face. Absolutely, they did vote for this. All right, let's move on. Where is that? Where is that second story? I am losing my notes and losing my shit. Possibly my mind, too. We're not going to talk about that one. Okay. It's Friday. I'm over-caffeinated and in a bit of a weird mood. But let's do it. Let's go to the next story. As the Trump government shutdown continues, President and his lackey, Russell Vought, or maybe not even lackey is the correct word, perhaps the shadow president, okay, Russell Vought, who was a main contributor to Project 2025 and now his OMB director, is threatening to enact some pretty painful spending cuts as revenge to some of the states that voted for Kamala Harris in 2024. See, Vought had gleefully announced his plan to inflict pain on voters during the shutdown, using the shutdown as an excuse, okay? By canceling $18 billion in infrastructure projects in New York and another $8 billion in green energy projects in the 18 states that had voted against Trump. Which, of course, is not just going to affect those states or just Harris voters. Now, of course, he announced these cuts on X, saying that the left agenda is finally being canceled, proving that his big desire is nothing more than to own the libs. This is something that he has been dreaming of doing, I should say, for a very, very long time. That said, not all Republicans are exactly thrilled with all of this. In fact, you have GOP representative from New York, Mike Lawler, who admitted in an exchange with CNN's Caitlin Collins that some of these cuts are going to end up hurting Trump's own voters.
They are playing pure politics here, and it has to stop.
But do you not believe the administration is playing politics by only canceling projects in states where Democrats are and are running the place?
Well, listen, I'm in New York, and I'm a Republican, and obviously this project cancellation impacts me, and it impacts my district. So it's not just Democrats getting impacted, but this is the consequence of the stupidity of shutting down the government, and Chuck Schumer is directly responsible. He should immediately call all of his Senate Democrats, bring them to the House, to the Senate floor, and vote to pass the CR. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard, guys. It's not that hard. I don't know. And it seemed pretty hard for Mitch McConnell the last time he shut the government down 7 years ago to try to defund healthcare. Notice how Republicans are all about shutting down the government to prevent people from getting healthcare, whereas Democrats are actually shutting down the government if it's their fault, which it's really not, but they did shut down the government in order to try to protect people's health care. Weird. And one of the reasons that the Democrats have not signed a continuing resolution is because Republicans have not tried to negotiate with them in good faith about the restoration of the ACA tax credits. They want those restored. They want some of the money that was taken out of Medicaid, the $1 trillion taken out of Medicaid, they want that put back. These are not far left ideas. What Democrats are asking for in this shutdown to refund, to fund the government, to continue funding this government, is basically something that most people support. Okay, according to a KFF health tracking poll, 78% of adults say that Congress should extend the enhanced premium tax credits for people who purchase their own coverage on the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, or Obamacare marketplaces. That is more than 3 times the share, 22%, who say that those credits should expire. That's right. 92% of Democrats, 82% of independents, and even a majority of Republicans, 59%, favor an extension of those credits. Even those Republicans who identify with the MAGA movement, 57% of them are saying, yeah, of course we should continue the subsidies. Why? Because if without the subsidies, our insurance rates will go up. And we already are having a very difficult time affording things, okay, in this Trump economy. Democrats are actually fighting harder to protect Republican voters than the Republicans are. Doesn't surprise me at all. Even in that video, Lawler had to admit that, yeah, Trump voters, they're going to be hurt by Vouts and Trump's little tantrum, okay? That's what's going to happen. Trump's cancellation of $18 billion for New York infrastructure projects, for example, would stop new train tunnels from being built under the Hudson River, which, when built, would actually benefit the entire region, not just the city, and places where Republican voters live, okay? Look, it doesn't matter if these projects are in blue states. Everyone who live in those states would benefit. And if these are blocked, they would also lose out. It's not just people who voted for Kamala Harris that are being impacted here. What the Republicans are doing is punishing their own voters in order to own the libs. And the same goes for all those green energy projects that Vout can't wait to cancel. Can't wait. But wait, those green energy projects also help Republican voters. They're going to lose out potentially on good paying jobs. For example, there was a project in the Pacific Northwest for a hydrogen hub. okay, which would span Washington, Oregon, and Montana. Montana happens to be a state that voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in this election. They have a Republican governor, Greg Gianforte, okay, who has hailed this project as a boon for his state, declaring that it's going to create good-paying Montana jobs and allow the state to be a leader in energy innovation. But not anymore. Not anymore. According to Bloomberg, that billion-dollar investment is on Vouch's chopping block. This is what they're doing. They're going to cut off their noses to spite their face. I mean, Trump has posted on social media that by entering into the shutdown standoff, Democrats have given him an opportunity to cut Democrat agencies, which is his way of him saying that, yeah, I'm going to cut congressionally appropriated funding that happens to go to some of my political enemies. The thing is, it's not just going to its political enemies. It's going to blow back on Republican voters and politicians. And you know what? They're going to have no one else to blame but themselves. All right. Move on to some pretty disastrous polling here. Another day, another pretty disastrous poll for President Donald Trump. This time when it comes to the economy and when it comes to affordability. Nearly half of all Americans and a third of Republicans say that everyday expenses for them have now become even more difficult to manage under this current administration. A significant portion of that is laying the blame at the feet of this administration, who happens to control all of government. So kind of makes sense. They're running everything. Okay, they control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, they control the courts. I mean, so whose fault is it? No, it must be the Democrats. Of course. But people aren't buying it. According to the latest Axios Vibes survey conducted by the Harris poll, 47% of Americans say that groceries are harder to afford compared to just a year ago, with 19% saying that they're cheaper somehow, and 34% saying they're about the same. You all paying attention? Well, it's not going to surprise you that when you break it down by political affiliation, 34% of Republicans, 50% of Democrats, and 54% of independent voters agree that groceries have become more expensive since September of last year. What's up with the rest of the Republicans? Are they somehow living in a place that has cheaper groceries than the rest of us? Or are they just not paying attention? Because it's certainly nowhere near me. Everything's more expensive. Inflation, not down. Inflation is up. Prices are up. Like, for example, two of the things that I love, beef and coffee, okay, they have risen. The prices of them have risen dramatically in the last few months. It's very difficult to afford a roll of hamburger these days, and steaks, forget it. I haven't had a steak in so long. Now, of course, some of these increases, to be fair, have been influenced by external factors, and it's not all squarely Donald Trump's fault. Again, I'm being super fair here, right? I'm not like the Republicans who be like, everything's the fault of Joe Biden and the radical left. No, there are some things that are the fault of, well, not the party that is in power, okay? But there are some things that are. Look, Trump, he did promise to lower grocery prices day one, and he did not deliver. Axios notes that 8 in 10 Americans, though, believe an incumbent president has significant influence over the health of the U.S. economy. Yes, but he still can't. No president can wave a wand and say cheap gas or cheap steaks. Okay, that's not the reality of the situation. They can do things, yes, but it also is incumbent upon Congress, and there is also external factors, yada, 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 right? That said, for most people, the buck stops with Trump, okay? Or the president himself. And again, there were a lot of people that blamed Biden as well for things that he couldn't control. And so I'm being totally fair about that. That said, the Harris poll surveyed 2,093 U.S. adults between September 11th and 13th, 65% of whom say that they feel financial pressure each month. I'm right there with you. I also feel that pressure. Among those facing difficulties, 37% blame the current administration, 20% of Republicans, 38% of independents, and 48% of Democrats. Roughly 32% of the group and larger shares of Republicans attribute this to business or personal decisions. Because, of course, they're not going to put any of the blame on their orange messiah or anything, and his policies, even when they are contributing to making their lives more difficult. Less than 1 in 3 believe that Trump's tariffs have had a positive effect, though, on the economy, businesses, or their finances. And 63% are concerned about product shortages as a result of the president's duties. That's right. We've been lucky so far in the fact that there was a lot of inventory that was stored up, okay, before Trump came to office. But that inventory has been slowly running out. And because of the tariffs, importing these things is going to be either more expensive or almost impossible. And so, yes, we are going to run out of things. Look, these kitchen table issues are a major problem, no matter what political party is in charge. Okay, kitchen table issues are often the number one issues that voters are concerned about. And so, look, a lot of Trump's voters this time around just happen to have been people who are making less than $50,000 a year. And you have counties that, look, you had counties that were relatively worse off in terms of unemployment, poverty, and median household income that were likely to choose Trump in the election. They were more likely, okay? And they did so because of a lot of his bullshit promises that he has not delivered on. Oh, I'm going to lower grocery prices. Day one. Didn't happen. Now, according to an AP NORC poll from mid-2025, 53% of American adults now considered grocery expenses as a major source of stress, with 33% considering these a minor issue. Oh, well, that must be nice. I'd love to consider that a minor issue. Among the lowest income households, 64% cited grocery prices as a significant stressor, and only 2 in 10 of the highest income category, those earning $100,000 or more, said grocery prices were not a concern. Must be nice. Again, must be nice. There's more. A Gallup poll conducted in early September revealed that overall economic confidence remains low, although certainly not record lows, to be fair. The economic confidence index currently stands at -20, with 28% rating current economic conditions as positive, and 68% saying that they are getting worse. Now, this compares to an index score of -28 in September of last year, up from a Biden-era low of -58 in June of 2022. Confidence is bad. Not as bad as it could be, but it ain't great. And it's probably going to drop further if nothing changes. And look, with Republicans completely in charge, people are starting to know who to blame. A September Signal poll showed that 39.6% of Americans now hold Republicans responsible for rising inflation. Now, 36.5% still somehow blame Democrats for that, even though they have not been in power. And when they were, by the way, again, they didn't control the entirety of the government. That poll, of course, marks a stark turnaround from this time last year when 46.3% blamed Democrats and only 25.5% blamed Republicans. Again, I can imagine those numbers getting worse if things do not improve. And I don't see them improving. John Grisama, CEO of the Harris poll, per Axios, said of this result, quote, "It's such a visible signal that life today is harder than it was even last year when we were in an election cycle." Grisama said of grocery bills, "Respondents don't feel like things are changing fast enough. This is going to be a significant issue for the president." I got to ask, is it though? I mean, it's not like Trump can run again, even though he keeps talking about it. Oh yeah, Trump 2028, right? Well, he's barred from running again. So that means that if he tanks the economy, tanks this country, and the Republican Party, leaves it a smoking ruin, you think he's going to give a damn? No, of course not. Of course not. That said, he did manage to lie a lot during his address to the UN General Assembly. And he did so while claiming that energy costs are down, which they're not. In fact, in some areas of the country, because of the widespread use of AI data centers promoted by this administration, energy prices in some of those areas have increased by 267%. So energy is not down at all. Gasoline, not down. I haven't seen, he keeps talking about gas is $1.99. Where? In your freaking dreams? In your fantasies? Somewhere in your spank bank? I don't know. But it ain't in the real world. Grocery prices are down. No, they're not. Mortgage rates are down. That's because you finally got Jerome Powell. You screwed the economy so bad that the Federal Reserve finally lowered interest rates, which saves you money on your loans. Of course. So, he was right about that one. And he also added that inflation has been defeated. Defeated! The only thing that's up is the stock market, which just hit a record high. The stock market is not the economy. The stock market, as of right now, is wholly divorced from reality. Okay? And pretty much everything else is not true. He did not defeat inflation. It's going up. According to trading economic forecasts, the annual inflation rate is expected to hit 3% for September. That is up from 2.9% in August. That's an increase. That's far from defeating inflation. No. And by the way, that is on top of all the inflation that has taken place since COVID had hit. Okay? Now, the rate of inflation actually did go down for a while under Joe Biden. But that doesn't mean that prices went down. That's just the rate of the price increases, okay? So prices still went up, they just went up slower. And by the way, a lot of the inflation that we've seen during COVID and afterwards, that's mainly been a result of corporate greed. It is about half of it was greedflation. You had CEOs in Zoom calls admitting that, yeah, we didn't have to raise prices, but we took advantage. We took advantage. And, we raised our prices. We called it inflation, even though our costs didn't actually go up. And we just pocketed the difference. And they'll never know, even though we're literally admitting it on camera. We're just going to blame Joe Biden. That's it. We're going to blame workers that got a $600 stimmy check. Okay. We're going to blame them for the inflation. It's their fault, not ours. Even though we profited massively from it and are continuing to do so. Look, Joe Biden, to be fair, Biden and the Democrats could have tried to do something to rein in that greedflation. Okay. They didn't. And look, maybe there wasn't anything that they could do about that. Although they could have tried to, for example, raise wages to try to help families make enough money to offset those costs. Okay? But, you know, they didn't do anything. Maybe, again, they didn't realize that they could do anything. I don't know. But on the same vein, perhaps that means that there's nothing that Donald Trump could do, or nothing that Trump wants to do. But he can do something. Lie. And that's what he's doing right now. He's lying and trying to gaslight all of us into believing that our current financial reality isn't reality at all. Okay? And I'm sorry, but I just don't think that is going to work. But Republican voters do not use trains or public transportation, so they will not be impacted. Yes, I'm sure. What is really messed up is you do have a surplus of beef because of the tariffs, that there are some countries that are not buying U.S. beef. Yeah, I believe it was, Australia that's not buying our beef? Yeah, because of those tariffs. And yet, you do have those rising prices. Maybe that's another example of greedflation. I'm not sure. Jedi Protector says beer is more expensive. Yeah, I don't necessarily drink a lot or drink often, but that's still a disaster. All right. Let's move on to the next story. Shocker. All right. Online MAGA influencer accounts have been pushing a digitally altered image of Thomas Jacob Sanford, the gunman accused in the Michigan church shooting. Now, apparently they are doing this in a desperate attempt to scrub any indication that he was pro-Trump. The manipulated photos have amassed millions of views on social media, often shared alongside claims that media outlets had lied about Sanford's support for Donald Trump. In fact, let me show you one of those images here from Cat Turd. Yes, that's right. Oh, my guess is Eric Spyfart's team photoshopped this themselves, showing a digitally altered image of a shirt. Now, that shirt, the original, shows Sanford wearing one that says, "Make liberals cry again" in Trump 2020. You can see that community note that it is digitally altered. And I'm going to show you the original here. So next to the fake, all right? So you have the original on the right, the fake on the left. And there it is. If only you hadn't photoshopped it. Exactly. So now, hold on. Why are they doing this? Why are they so desperately trying to change this? I mean, it's not like this was an example of political violence. I mean, it wasn't. It turns out that the motive for this entire thing was actually much more personal, okay, and not related to his politics at all. In fact, two friends of Sanford had told the New York Times that Sanford's hatred of Mormons, so yes, he hates Mormons, which I guess would make sense when you look at the crime, okay? So his hatred, though, had apparently grew out of a breakup that he had with a girlfriend more than a decade ago. According to his friends, Sanford would rant about the LDS church, the Mormon church, even going so far as to rant during his best friend's wedding. He had once, actually multiple times, referred to Mormonism as the Antichrist. He reportedly even took that chance to complain about Mormons to a politician who was canvassing in his neighborhood. So when you're bringing it up to a random, politician coming to your door, canvassing, no, damn Mormons, let me tell you what, Antichrist, you know that there's something wrong, okay? There's a lot wrong. Now, during his stay in Utah, okay, so this guy had lived in Utah and had reportedly fell in love with a woman who was part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I guess he was madly in love with this girl, okay? And she was very, very, very devout. And that relationship just didn't work out. According to his friend, the relationship ended in a way that left Stanford deeply hurt. He said mentally, he was in rough shape. No kidding. And one of the ways that he had coped with this was to do large amounts of meth. Oh boy. Oh, not good at all. Okay. That's bad. That's real bad. And look, he was doing this and just could not get over his hatred of Mormons. Okay. So I'm thinking that this guy blamed the religion for his relationship not working out. She had, after all, tried to convert him to get him to be in the church, and he wasn't comfortable with it. And so here's the thing. Man hated Mormons. Okay? Now, according to the friend, another friend of Stanford says he got this whole fascination with Mormons, and they are the Antichrist, and they're going to take over the world. Now, if you know Mormons at all, and actually what they particularly believe, when you die as a Mormon, you get your own planet. So why would you want to take over this one? Doesn't make sense to me. Now, this is according to Francis Tersini, a friend of Sanford's. Quote, all he could talk about was Mormons. I was like, dude, nobody wants to hear about this. Please stop. Stop ranting about Mormons. It's my wedding. Okay. Why did we even invite this guy? Look, even before the attack, just days before he attacked that Mormon church, he was ranting about them being the Antichrist. And so there you go. Look, it seems very clear to me that this was not an example of political violence and wasn't actually targeted against Christianity as a whole. It's not any of the things that influencers on the right tried to pin on the shooting. Remember, they're basically, every time that there's a mass shooting, they claim that, it's a transgender leftist Antifa terrorist, okay? But in reality, in this case, Stanford was apparently a jilted lover who, loved guns, conspiracy theories, Donald Trump, and doing copious amounts of meth. I love that now that the truth is out and it's not what the MAGA chuds wanted it to be, they're out there not admitting that, okay, yeah, we were wrong about that, sorry. But no, they're trying to change the reality of the situation. Why are they not happy with the fact that this was not political violence? I mean, why? He didn't do this for Donald Trump. He didn't do this for MAGA or anything. It was very personal. This does not count as one of the many right-wing domestic terrorist attacks that, look, let's be honest, right-wing terror, right-wing domestic terror is one of the leading types of political violence in this country. Okay, that's the reality, but this does not count as one of those. This was deeply personal. So why then try to change it? Because it's not about the truth. It's not about the reality.
Just forget about the evidence.
Okay? This is about creating a narrative. Cat Turd, Benny Johnson, and all the others that jumped on this case hoping that this was a leftist transgender attacking Christianity. They desperately wanted to spin this narrative that is the left that's violent, despite the fact that they know deep down in their little black little hearts, right, that it is the right wing that is more responsible for political violence in this country. They're the ones who do it more often, way more often. And they can't stand that that's the truth, and are now going to some pretty desperate lengths to try to lie and to change that narrative, to change the truth, to gaslight people. And I think with the hope that this administration will use that to try to wipe out their political opposition. Okay. Coffee is up $8 a container since last month. Yeah, it's really bad. I'm someone who is an avid coffee drinker. And, you know, I got to get low acid coffee because, you know, I'm a very acidic person, apparently. and man, is that expensive. I'm trying to figure out whether or not it's cheaper to just buy it whole bean and grind my own beans. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy who grinds his beans, okay? Which can sound dirty if you are in that mindset, but yes, I grind my own beans, and I'm trying to figure out whether or not that is cheaper than buying whole ground, or pre-ground. And so, you know, we all got to do what we got to do to save money because of the fact that Trump has just made this economy even worse, okay? And not just Trump, but of course, wholesale corporate greed. The truth dies when folk only believe lies. And not only does that rhyme, but it's also very true. Okay. Gatorade Twitch is being discontinued thanks to Asshat RFK. What's Gatorade Twitch? I'm curious about that now. I don't know what that is. But I mean, is it the Twitch channel for Gatorade? I am serious. I have no idea what that is. So. But let's just add it to one of the many things that RFK Jr. is screwing up. Oh, Gatorade with caffeine. That makes sense. That makes sense. Whole beans keep better than ground. Folks who really enjoy their coffee do it for flavor as much as financial savings, says the Sun. Ah, that does explain why my coffee does taste better. So, pre-ground's usually cheaper, but not worth the flavor, quality flavor loss for me. Again, I do like grinding my own beans because I do think it makes not only more coffee, but better tasting coffee for me. And so I've been doing that for a while. I got a little Mr. Coffee Grinder over here. But yeah, great that it actually is a benefit before I even, studied what the benefits were. I was just like, I don't know, I'm gonna grind my own beans. So hey, works out that I'm a winner. Okay. Last story for y'all today, and that is another Nazi porn scandal, but with a twist. With a twist. And not on the story itself, by the way, but my response to it. What? All right. In what is a very 2025 headline, there is another Republican that is caught up in what they're calling a Nazi porn scandal. Yes, another. Now, you may remember the first one, which had plagued the Republican lieutenant governor of North Carolina just last year. Remember, CNN reported that an account linked to North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson had boasted about being a black Nazi that preferred transgender pornography. Now, that guy is, of course, very legislatively anti-trans. And so that's kind of weird, okay? You're a bit of a chaser, all right. Now, that's among other things, right? And he had posted prolifically on an explicit online forum. Now, this revelation, of course, pretty much ended this man's campaign. Okay, good. But now we have another. That's right, another Republican Nazi porn scandal, this time involving a candidate for lieutenant governor in Virginia. What is it with these Republican lieutenant governors and people finding out what's in their spank bank? I mean, so here is Republican nominee John Reed, okay, who is facing scrutiny surrounding a Tumblr blog allegedly linked to him. That, of course, contained and reposted pornographic content. Now, Reed, of course, denies ownership of this profile, which happens to have the same username as other social media accounts that belong to him, with the name J.R. Dew. Okay. Now, I don't know, if you're going to do that, maybe just not name your Tumblr account that contains your spank bank the same as your other accounts. It seems like, I don't know, if you're trying to keep these things kind of separate and secret, it would make sense not to name them the same. I understand that it's maybe easier to keep track of all your different social media accounts, but it also can get you in a little bit of trouble. Just FYI. Anyway, it was previously reported that J.R. Dew had reposted users' photos that, per the Washington Post, had ranged from explicit photos of male genitalia to images typical of a racy underwear ad. Okay. Now, look, that actually makes a lot of sense here. Reed's openly gay. Okay? Whatever. I don't personally care about that. I mean, everyone knows, it's the worst kept secret in the world that there's a bunch of gay Republicans. And I'm not just talking about the log cabin guys, okay? There is a reason that Grindr crashes every single time the RNC comes to town, okay? This is not a secret. It's not a secret. And yes, there are some that are out in the open. Again, the log cabin guys, right? But there's also, I think, plenty of them who are so deep in the closet you could swear that they were residing in Narnia, okay? Again, though, I don't care. I don't care. If you're a gay Republican, who cares? In fact, the worst part of that is you being a Republican. Like, what's the deal there? All right, what the hell? But even though I don't care and liberals don't care, Republicans do. Republicans care a lot about that for some reason. Even though, again, they're the ones crashing Grindr. Look, Governor Glenn Youngkin had actually urged, after this happened, this man to drop out, okay? To drop out of the race. Now, look, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a spank bank, okay? I don't care. I don't care. Whatever, man. Whatever. But there's more, apparently. On Wednesday, American Journal News had unearthed additional details about the J.R. Dew Tumblr profile. In October of 2015, the blog reposted an image of a male college student in underwear. Okay, whatever. Which was published by, and here's where the Nazi part comes in. It's a Nazi fetish account that literally has a racial slur in its username. The phrase, obedient N-word. Oh. And that user described himself as a subservient N-word who knows his place in society and who is seeking superior white men in the Washington, D.C. area. And here we go. All right.
Sexual anarchy.
The late, great Charlie Kirk. There you go. Look, the man will always have a place of honor in the soundboard talking about sexual anarchy. Okay. Now, according to American Journal News, the Nazi fetish account would, post sexual images of swastikas and white supremacist slogans. Yikes. Ugh. Whoa. Okay. That said, JR to be fair, only shared that one underwear post. So it didn't really share any of the other pro-Nazi stuff. Okay. Now, that said, JR also shared posts from an account called Slave Andy, which is an account that was devoted to sexual slavery. Okay. All right. So look, there's weird stuff online. Okay. Everybody knows that there's weird stuff online. A lot of weird fetish accounts, a lot of fantasy fetish accounts, not just on Tumblr, but all over the internet. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. And maybe I'm gonna, piss off a few people, whatever. But look, I think that as long as this stuff stays fantasy, I don't care that it exists. You got to understand that I have an extremely liberal view involving sex. Okay, I think pretty much the only thing that matters to me personally is issues of consent. Okay, if it's between consenting adults, I don't care what you do. And I know it's a lot of this stuff is weird. Okay, well, you know what? Welcome to human sexuality, which is weird. There is a lot of stuff out there that I'm not into, but I do not care if you are. I don't care if other people are into that. If you're into if you're a foot guy, okay, whatever. I'm not a foot guy. I don't care. Go ahead though. Have fun. Find a partner who's cool with that, who has nice feet. I don't care. Okay. I'm not into bondage. I'm not into femdom, which, by the way, femdom, pretty popular among conservatives. Weirdly enough. Okay. Hey, if you're into that, totally fine. I don't care. The only thing that I care is it's consent, if it's consensual, and if you're safe about it. That's what matters to me. All right. Yeah, you do things, a little bit of BDSM, right? If you're into that, okay, we'll just be safe about it, okay? Have a safe word. Other than that, I don't care. I don't care. Okay, and look, as far as the Nazi fetish account, I've seen a lot of things, but I actually didn't know that was a thing. I shouldn't have been surprised. I shouldn't be Pikachu face about this one, okay? But it doesn't shock me. It doesn't shock me, okay? And it definitely wouldn't shock me that a right-winger would be totally into that, okay? Again, doesn't shock me. That said, I don't think that what this guy did, JRD, right? I don't think what he did was quite as bad as what Mark Robinson did. Remember, this guy, he's going on forums and saying, I am a black Nazi. Okay, but that's pretty clear. That's pretty clear. Okay. Whereas this guy reposted somebody who's in their underwear. It just doesn't seem quite as bad. Quite on par, with the previous, Nazi porn scandal. Okay. Again, I know you're probably mad at me for being extremely fair here, but let me just say, I just think that there are better reasons to not vote for this guy. For example, being a Republican. Again, what the hell? What's the deal with that? Okay, gay Republican. What the hell? But that's just my point of view. Take from this story what you will. But let me just say one last time that human beings and human sexuality is just, it's weird. It's weird. But you know what? Weird isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's what makes us unique. How about that? How about that? Am I not the most fair and understanding man in America? All right. That's it. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching the show, please like and share the stream if you enjoyed this little time that we had together today. If you haven't, please subscribe. Consider becoming a supporter of the show. You know, by hitting the join button below. If you're on YouTube, become a subscriber. If you're on Facebook, or send some stars or whatever. Or, you know, you can even sign up to become a patron, patreon.com/jeffwaldorf, to, you know, help the show stay on the air. Okay, because, you know, it's pretty difficult for independent media these days. And so there you go. Naked Adolf Zoom images. Oh my goodness. And this is for you, Existential Dread.
Sexual anarchy.
All right. See, I'm listening to the audience here, because you guys make the show happen, guys and gals. All right, look, wild. It is wild. This is a news cycle every single day. Just insanity. All right. Anyway, try to have a great weekend, or a good weekend, or whatever. Unplug from the news if possible, and all that stuff. Get your sanity back, and I'll be here on Monday, as always. So same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here, Logically Left. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody.